What's going on, guys? It's Zach here. Bring you guys my fantasy football video. So I'll be going over the first start sits for week 16. So we're in week 2 of the fantasy football playoffs. Hopefully, you guys are lucky enough to have made it through or have had a bye in week 1 of the playoffs. And hopefully, you guys made it through a pretty bumpy week 1 of the fantasy playoffs. I know there were a lot of really up and down performances, a lot of really surprising performances, and a lot of studs who didn't necessarily perform. So a lot of people had some really tough matchups, but hopefully, you're lucky enough to have made it through. And if you did, this week is as important as ever. We want to make sure we get our lineups as optimized as possible. So I'll be doing 3 start sit videos this week. They'll be doing the first 5 games of the week today. And tomorrow you guys will get the next 5. And the following video will go over the final 6 games. So that way you guys will get every single, a little bit more in-depth advice in terms of who I'd be starting in the city. And then, of course, as always, if you guys do have any specific start sit questions, you're more than welcome to let me know in the comments. I love helping you guys get all those lineups set and getting you guys all ready to roll. So I want to apologize as well. I'm sort of traveling, visiting family for the holidays and everything. So don't have the usual setup, but still doing our best to get you guys everything out here. And should just be a lot of fun here and everything. So yeah, appreciate all you guys. And yeah, let's just get into the first game. Starting things off with the Saints at the Rams. It's honestly a relatively tough game for me to predict because the Saints defense is honestly really good. And the Rams pass defense isn't bad enough that I'm super confident in the Saints offense. But I think for the Saints offense, Kamara and Chris Olave, they're going to be lineup locks for me. Olave was limited in practice Tuesday, and Nick Underhill reported that we do expect to see him back in action this week. So I think with him being active, you definitely got to play him. But and obviously Alvin Kamara involved enough, just being involved as a pass catcher too much to really consider sitting him for sure. Although I think you're probably sitting every other New Orleans Saint in this game. Rashid Shaheed, he'd be a flex option for me. He did get back to his full allotment of snaps last week, but I don't think you really want to consider him unless Chris Olave sits. So keep that in mind. But I think Chris Olave and Kamara are the only ones to really trust. Don't really want to trust either tight end for New Orleans. We saw Juwan Johnson get in the end zone last week, but I don't really want to trust that. Taysom Hill involvement's too sporadic, and then on top of that, Derek Carr, not really a great streaming option for me this week. The Rams' pass defense, like I said, is good enough that I don't really want to trust a middling quarterback like Derek Carr right now. For the Rams, Stafford, he's a low-end streaming option this week. The Saints' defense is really solid, but you can certainly do worse than Stafford. He's been great each of the last 4 weeks. Even last week, even though it was a little bit underwhelming, still got the job done, still a really solid streaming option, and he's playing really well, so you can certainly play Stafford if you want to. Kyren and Cooper Kupp, they're both going to be must starts. There's no way I'd consider benching them. And then Puka Nacua, he'd be wide receiver 3 for me this week. And I'm really, the only real sit for me for the Rams this week would be Demarcus Robinson. I know he's come through for the last 2 weeks. He's been involved, but it sounds like Tutu Atwell is going to be active this week, returning from his concussion. I don't really want to trust a guy like Puka Nacua or like Demarcus Robinson this week, especially in what should be a tough matchup. And he should see a limited role this week once Tutu returns. Moving on to the first Saturday game, we've got the Bengals at the Steelers. I'd expect Jamar Chase to miss this game. He obviously suffered an AC joint sprain, so not really expecting to see a super active Jamar Chase here. I'd expect Higgins to operate as the wide receiver 1 for the Bengals. That makes him a solid wide receiver 3 option for me. Really came through for managers last week with a 2-touchdown performance, probably on a lot of people's benches. I know I benched him everywhere I had him, so really tough with Higgins, but I think now he's a wide receiver 3. Still going to be relatively boomer bust the way he plays, where he operates downfield, but obviously a threat to score in a given week. So you're probably playing T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd, he's a solid flex option. Jake Browning's been playing well enough. I think he can support 2 wide receivers. Tyler Boyd should see enough volume that you can use him for sure. And then Tanner Hudson, he's been more and more involved. He's a really real safety blanket for this backup quarterback and Jake Browning. I think you can play him as like a desperation tight end play if you want to. Joe Mixon, he's a solid running back too, but I would sit Chase Brown and Jake Browning if I can. I think Jake Browning's a decent streaming option, but I just hope you have better options. I know Browning's been playing well so far, but the Steelers defense scares me a little bit. I don't think the Steelers offense will put up enough points that it'll make the Bengals need to score. So I think I just prefer to sit both Chase Brown and Browning if I can. Moving on to the Steelers, I think I just really have zero confidence in any of them. Obviously, this offense has just looked absolutely brutal. The Steelers are in line to be starting Mason Rudolph this week, and that shouldn't really give you any additional confidence over what they've had so far. That being said, Jalen Warren, he's low-end running back too. Obviously, the more explosive of the 2 running backs in Pittsburgh, but just not getting enough volume, so I don't really trust him for sure, but he's involved enough as a pass catcher. You can play him for sure. And on top of that, I'd probably just do whatever I can to sit Najee. The Bengals' run defense is good enough that I don't really have any real confidence in him. Then on top of that, he fumbled last week. He's listed as questionable right now. He's missed a couple practices in the last couple weeks. I just don't think he's playing at 100%. Really isn't playing well. I don't want to be playing Najee if I can avoid it. And outside of that, Deontay Johnson, he's a wide receiver 3 for me. Don't expect a whole lot out of the Steelers passing game with Mason Rudolph, but he's involved enough. He'll operate close enough to line of scrimmage. I think you can trust Deontay Johnson, but George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth probably need to be on benches this week. Moving on to what was supposed to be a really fun game if you looked at it on paper early on in the season, the Bills at the Chargers. The Bills are honestly just super tough for me to really evaluate right now. Josh Allen and James Cook are really the only must starts for me. Josh Allen still the quarterback one in fantasy on the season. James Cook coming off of a career performance that sunk me in a really important playoff matchup last week. I lost by 1 point. Opponent had James Cook, so that was a bit of a bummer. But that being said, James Cook's been absolutely fantastic this season. You're definitely playing him more and more involved in the offense, and this Chargers run defense is really bad. So James Cook should have a monster performance again this week. Stephon Diggs probably still needs to be in lineups, but it has been rough lately. He's really had only one good game over each of the last 5 weeks. And I really don't think they're going to need to do a ton offensively to beat this Chargers team. So if you have better options, I could see a scenario where you want to consider sitting Stephon Diggs, but we all know Stephon Diggs is Stephon Diggs. There's a real chance he could go out there and put up a wide receiver one overall on the week finish if you decide to bench him. So tough situation there, but you can bench him if you need to. Just in the couple of leagues I have Diggs, I'm not sitting him. I've got Diggs and Sutton in a couple leagues and Hopkins. I'm going to play Diggs over both those guys. That's really the only decision I personally have to make. So if you have any questions with Diggs, feel free to let me know. But I do know he's one of the tougher players to decide on right now. So keep him in mind, but I still think he probably needs to be in lineups this week. Dalton Kincaid, really the only other Buffalo Bill I consider playing. He's a low end tight end one for me, obviously coming off of a goose. This Chargers pass defense is not great. Like I said, there's a concern is that this Bills offense wins and handles this game really easily. You just see a low passing volume game, sort of like last week, where there really wasn't enough pass volume to go around. I believe late in the third quarter, Josh Allen had 6 pass completions. So we don't really need to see a whole lot of passing volume out of this offense. So it could be concerning here, but I still think Kincaid and Diggs are solid lineup options. And then Gabe Davis, just don't do it. I did play him in a league last week, got away with it and won anyway. But I just can't see myself trusting Gabe Davis unless I see a couple weeks in a row of really high involvement in the offense. The Chargers, Austin Eckler, probably the only Charger that I would even consider looking at. This is assuming Keenan Allen's inactive. Eckler, though, is just truly a low-end running back two at this point. Just not involved in the offense enough. He's really a part-time player, basically like a pass-catching down specialist, and that's it. Hasn't looked 100%. This offense is going to be really bad as well. The Chargers have nothing to play for. I think you should consider benching Austin Eckler if you can. And then Joshua Palmer, you can flex him as well if you want to, but I would prefer not to. He should operate as the wide receiver one in this offense going forward, but he's not good enough to really command a reliable target share, nor is he good enough to really beat coverage when he's being treated as a true number one. So I don't think he's really a solid option. Easton Stick's not good enough to really make it work with Joshua Palmer here as a number one. So unless you're in a really deep league, I've got Joshua Palmer in one league. It's a 12-team league, two flex spots, 3 wide receivers, and I'm still going to be benching Joshua Palmer. So I hope you have better options than Palmer, but I do think he's got some sort of floor if you need him. And then Keenan Allen, obviously didn't talk about him here really. If he's active, I think you're probably playing him. We'll know more as the week goes on, but I just don't really want to trust it. I'd be shocked if he plays anyway, and I just consider him not really available for your fantasy roster. Next up, we've got the Commanders at the Jets. Really tough one here for me. We have the worst defense in the NFL in the Commanders against the worst offense in the NFL in the Jets, and that is true. The Commanders are the 32nd ranked defense. The Jets, the 32nd ranked offense. So we got the immovable object versus an unstoppable force here. So it should be fun. Something's got to give there. For the Commanders, Curtis Samuel, he'd be my preferred wide receiver play. I know Terry McLaurin came off of a masterful performance last week, almost saved me in one matchup last week, but just really don't love the matchup here. The Jets pass defense is absolutely fantastic. We're going to see Terry McLaurin line up outside against DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. So I don't think that's going to be a really great situation for Terry McLaurin. He and Dotson will operate on the outside while Curtis Samuel can operate in the middle. He'd be the guy that I think can have some success against the Jets. I know the Jets did give up a huge game to Jalen Waddle last week, so you can certainly play Terry McLaurin, but the matchup is just really awful. Terry McLaurin would be a low-end wide receiver 3 for me, along with Curtis Samuel. So I think they're both like flex plays, so like wide receiver 3 plays, but just nothing that I'm super confident in. Outside of that, for the Commanders, Brian Robinson, I think he's probably going to miss this game again. If that's going to be the case, Antonio Gibson will be a low-end running back 2 for me. If Robinson plays, it'll make him like a low-end running back 2, very touchdown dependent. He could always score. This Jets rush defense is not fantastic at all. He gave up 2 rushing touchdowns to Raheem Mostert last week. So you could play Brian Robinson if you needed to, but I wouldn't be excited about it by any means. And then outside of that, for the Jets, it's really easy. It's Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and nobody else pretty much every single week. They could be without Zach Wilson this week, who got banged up with a concussion last week. And that is surprisingly a bit of an issue for this Jets offense. Zach Wilson is pretty clearly the best option they have. So that's a really tough situation if you're the Jets. But so like you're playing Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. I know Garrett Wilson let a lot of people down last week. This is a plus matchup for sure. I think you can play them both. I just wouldn't expect any sort of week winning performance out of either one. Then next, we've got the Lions at the Vikings. I think you're going to play your usual Lions here. I know the Vikings defense has been a lot better lately, although they did get beat up pretty well against the Bengals last week. Jahmyr Gibbs is a low end running back one. Didn't mean to say running back two there. Montgomery, he's a clear running back two. Both these guys are started. Obviously, Montgomery hasn't been fantastic each of the last 2 weeks, but he's still been serviceable around 10 PPR fantasy points. And he did that without scoring a touchdown. So I do expect him to find the end zone at some point. Could easily be this week. Montgomery and Gibbs both need to be in lineups for sure. Amon-Ra, he's a wide receiver one. And honestly, Sam Laporta might be the tight end one. He's the tight end two on the season right now, just behind TJ Hawkinson. I think they're both going to be awesome plays this week. So you're definitely playing both of them. If you have Laporta, you're probably still moving on in your fantasy playoffs. And I do think you can stream Jared Goff as well. The Vikings defense is playing well, but it's in a dome. Jared Goff played really well last week, obviously, threw 5 passing touchdowns. This Vikings defense, even though it's been playing better of late, it doesn't necessarily scare me. I think this Lions offense is good enough that you can stream Jared Goff as like a fringe top 14, top 12 option this week. Nick Mullins, he's a deep league streaming option for me. If it helps you at all, I may start him over Russell Wilson in a super flex leagues this week. I've got him, Russ, and Gardner Minshew. I've got to choose between one of those three for my super flex spot this week. I'm currently leaning Nick Mullins, but that might change over the course of the week. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions there. I know Nick Mullins is probably not a great option in one quarterback league, but if you have Mullins, he is certainly serviceable. This is a plus matchup against the Lions here. Justin Jefferson, he's the high end wide receiver two for me. Addison's a solid wide receiver three. It was great to see Addison put up a huge game last week with Nick Mullins. So we do know that ceiling is still there for Addison. TJ Hawkinson, he's a must start. Obviously, 2 straight mediocre performances for him, but you're still playing him. No way you've got a better option. He's definitely a locked and loaded starter. And then I actually probably want to get Ty Chandler in my lineup. I know that this Vikings offense isn't fantastic, and the Lions' run defense has been really good, but Chandler's just clearly got some juice, even with Alexander Mattison coming back, which isn't even confirmed at all yet. Chandler's still a guy that I expect to see a lot of volume. Still a guy that should be the focal point of their offense out of the backfield. He's just a good player. So I think I want to play Chandler if I can, but he's like a low end running back too for me. So that'll do it for this week's first start sit video. Up next, you'll get the next 5 games. And then after that, you'll get the final 6 games of the week. So I'll go through all 16 games this week, help make sure you guys have every single player talked about. So Wednesday morning, you guys will get this one. Thursday morning, you guys will get the second video. And then Friday morning, you guys will get a third. And on top of that, you guys will get the live stream Sunday morning. So I'll be keeping myself available for you guys. As always, if you guys do have any specific start sit questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to get back to you, get you guys your lineups all set, and get you guys as suited up as possible to get some championships this year. So appreciate all you guys. It's been a lot of fun so far this season. If you guys haven't already, which would be shocking if you're watching this video, you just take the minute to subscribe to the channel. We're putting out videos through the end of the season, making sure we can get you guys set to win those trophies. So really appreciate all the support, guys. It's been a lot of fun this season. Let's close it out strong. So thanks, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.